Hey, it's been a little bit of time since we've had a show. Welcome back to the Sports Rush Live Sunday edition. I think it's been about 3 weeks. We had the Notre Dame game on a Sunday, and I was traveling, and then I was in Florida, and then Adam Lundy was on a vacation, and one thing led to another. We have not had a chance to do a show, but we are back. And it is great to have you with us. We appreciate so many of you tuning in. We've got a lot to talk about because there's a ton of things happening with Indiana sports. Of course, we have to talk about the college football playoffs, where right now it looks like Indiana is the favorite to win the national championship. Let that sink in for a moment. Also, you've got Indiana Purdue basketball. We've got Purdue Fort Wayne basketball. We've got the Colts finishing off their season. And now, where do the Colts go from here? A lot of things to talk about. And we're going to be joined here in just a few minutes by Shannon Griffith, who hosts an Indiana Hoosiers podcast. We'll get his take on what to expect out of these playoffs. But before we get any further into the show, we welcome in Adam Lundy back from
Hey,
California, where he
fresh
was
back.
putting the beautiful flowers on the floats and making the Rose Parade a beautiful mess in the rain out in California.
Man, first time it's rained in 20 years at the Rose Parade, and they decided to make a dump while I was there. But other than that, no, it was a fantastic experience out there. And Indiana fans, if you happen to catch the Rose Parade and you saw the Indiana Hoosiers float going down Colorado Street there in Pasadena, you can thank me personally for some of those crimson roses that you saw on the Indiana float.
You literally had your fingerprints all over it.
No question about it. From the first day where we were doing a lot of manual physical labor, bringing all of the rose buckets out for them to put into the individual vials, to the second day where we actually got to jam them into the float to make it look very nice. It was quite the experience.
Well, the Rose Bowl or the Rose Parade, I guess, was a nice touch. But let's be honest, we're
Let's
in
get to
Indiana,
the
and all we
point.
care about is the Rose Bowl game. What a win for the Indiana Hoosiers! I mean, everybody struggles with the long layoff. You know who doesn't struggle? The team that is so disciplined, organized, and fundamental. I mean, this is all about coaching in preparation. Kurt Signetti, you give the extra time to, and he only gets his team even more prepared to play rather than rusty. And that team was sharp. They were very well prepared. Great game plan. They attacked Alabama throughout the entire game. That was just a complete wipeout of the Alabama Crimson Tide. And Indiana, I mean, how crazy is it that we're saying that Indiana is now the Alabama of the 2020s? Um, I mean, really, it's role reversal. Indiana is the dominant team that expects to win each and every week. Nobody debated Indiana being in the field this time around. And Indiana kind of gave us proof that Alabama did not deserve a spot in this college football playoff. They were nowhere close to being a contender for a national title. That's a whole nother subject
Hmm.
because Notre Dame got screwed, and I don't like the way Notre Dame responded to being screwed. But Notre Dame exposed Alabama so bad for what they are, and that's a just above mediocre football team that plays in a weak ass conference, the SEC. And I love to say that because they brag about how great their football conference is. But guess
It's
what?
just
Now
different.
that everybody's paying big bucks, there are players that will go north. You know, it used to be the SEC was really good because they were handing bags of cash under the table. Now everybody gives you the cash on top of the table. And guess what's happened? The playing field's been evened out. And you got teams like Indiana, Oregon, Miami's not a surprise. They've been passing out money forever. But Ole Miss. Now they're from the SEC, so somebody's going to say, "Well, you're arguing against yourself." But Ole Miss is not a power of the SEC. When you think the Southeastern Conference, you're thinking Georgia, LSU, Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma. Those are the teams you're thinking about. Florida. You're not thinking Ole Miss is going to be the team that represents the SEC in the college football playoff semifinals. But let's get back to the real story. Indiana, impressive, very impressive.
I came on this, after they won the Rose Parade, I basically decided in my head, or the Rose Bowl, I should say. I've been doing so much parade stuff. I've just been, I've switched over. But, after winning
Well,
the
they won
Rose
the
Bowl,
parade too
they
because
won
they
the parade.
actually had people on their float.
Nobody was on the Alabama float. It was so weird. I don't know. But
Nobody went to the game from Alabama. The whole stadium was IU fans.
I can tell you, as someone who was out there in Pasadena, the ratio of Alabama to Indiana fans had to be at least 30-1, man. Hoosiers, you came out to Pasadena, you showed out. The fans were absolutely fantastic. Everywhere was Hoosiers red. It was fantastic. No Alabama red.
Anybody that went to Southern California, I mean, Hoosier fans were spread out all over. It wasn't just you had to be in Pasadena.
No.
I mean,
I went down to San Diego.
Everywhere.
Yeah, I went down to San Diego. Still saw plenty of Hoosiers fans down there at the San Diego Zoo and at SeaWorld. So shout out to Hoosiers fans. But no, I came on this show ready to say this is the greatest turnaround in a sports team I have ever seen in my lifetime. You have to give it to Curt Cignetti and his ability to turn this team around. And I mean, we haven't even got to it yet, but he's been absolutely crushing it in the transfer portal today. We'll get to that later. But just the fact that, the absolutely dismantling of the Alabama Crimson Tide in the Rose Bowl, I didn't think it was going to be that dramatic of a win. But after seeing that, this is the best turnaround of a sports team I've ever seen in my lifetime, Brett.
That's a great point. We should open up our comments because I think that's very worthwhile to get thoughts on that. Is there any team in the history of sport that was able to turn around a football team like Indiana has turned around its football program? And there's no question, it's Curt Cignetti, the best coaching job in the history of the game. What he has done with the culture, the way he goes about the business of running the football program. And I'll be honest, I had a little conversation with Coach John Kaufman about this, that coaching is no longer just X's and O's. There is so much more to being a coach, whether it's high school, college, professional. There is so much more to being a coach than just knowing your X's and O's. It's people management. It is running a program, and that involves what are the priorities, what things need to be done, in what order. Curt Cignetti has it down. I mean, I'm sure that, even trying to determine the exact travel schedule, when they arrived, when they flew, a lot of that is probably predetermined, but I'll bet Curt Cignetti still had some say in how they were going to go about their business once they got to Southern California, and what they were going to do, how much film they were going to watch, how much time they were going to spend practicing. All of that stuff has changed the program completely at IU. And this team believes they're the best team in the country. They play like they're the best team in the country. They don't beat themselves. And in the process, they beat on you. They just broke the will of Alabama. Physically, mentally, they absolutely destroyed whatever there was in those Crimson Tide uniforms and dominated that football game.
Alabama looked like a team that thought they were playing in the ReliaQuest Bowl or something like that. I mean, I'm not saying they didn't put out the effort, but just the results that they were able to get out of whatever schemes they had, like you said, were completely shut down. And a good point that you brought up earlier, this is the first team in this format of the college football playoffs that got a bye to win their game. And like you said, we've seen so many teams that have gotten that extra time off. Ohio State, for example, they go in and they make mental mistakes and they look unprepared. We did not see that with the Indiana Hoosiers and the coaching of Curt Cignetti.
No, and that's running the program. That's as soon as you know how much time you have off, you've got to decide how much of it is mental rest, how much is physical rest, when do you start to ramp things back up, how quickly do you ramp it up, when do you introduce the scouting report, because you don't want to burn guys out with all this time, but you also don't want to allow them to just sit and get rusty. And he mastered it. And I mean, at this point, nothing surprises me with Curt Cignetti. He just seems to know every button to push. The whole thing with, and it goes back a year ago, the trip to Los Angeles to take on UCLA. Most teams would go out a couple of days early, try to adjust to the time zone. Curt Cignetti's like, no, I don't like being on the road. We were going to go late in the evening on the day before the game, get up the next day, go play the game, and fly back home, period. No adjustment to the time zone. And therefore, if you don't make it a different schedule because of the time zone, then it doesn't become an issue for your players. They don't think time zone is something that's almost an added opponent to them, that they have to beat the time zone difference. He just ignored it, just basically said, no, we're going to go out there and play a football game. We're going to be prepared for it. We're not going to spend any more time than we have to out in Los Angeles. I mean, against it, what everybody wants to tell you should do, he comes up with something different. What did they do? They went out there and just absolutely kicked UCLA's butt on the road. That was the first moment we had with IU, right? That was the moment when Indiana went on the road to UCLA and just absolutely smoked the Bruins, because they'd already won a couple of really big games against non-D1s, and then they had to go play UCLA on the road and destroyed them. And that was, for me, that was my first moment where, maybe they're actually pretty good. Here's my fun fact. I put this in my other video, but I'll share it with you, Adam. I know you probably have watched the video at least 3 times.
Yes.
Wink. I'll give you the little fun fact I threw into the other video. Regardless of what happens from here on out, Curt Cignetti at Indiana is going to finish his first 2 seasons not losing a single game to a team that did not play in the national championship game. Because even if they lose this next game, and I don't think they will, I think they're going to beat Oregon for a second time. You have to believe that. Every cliche, it's tough to beat a team twice in the same season. You could throw them out. It's tough to have a month off between games and everything. Curt Cignetti he goes against the norm. And so that's why I don't think it matters that they beat Oregon, because I think they'll be so focused on Oregon as of this Friday night and not even think about the fact they beat them before. They're going to focus on what job they've got to do to win the football game on Friday night. Last game doesn't matter. They're going to be prepared. They're going to be prepared for what Oregon is going to bring. Now, I think Oregon's going to perhaps be better than they were out in Oregon. You just won't have to deal with the crowd. But I think Oregon knows they have to be better. Oregon now knows they're not playing a top 5 team. They're playing the best team in the country. And so I think they're going to be a little better. They're also healthy. They had a couple of guys out of the lineup when they played the first time. But I don't think it matters. Curt Cignetti is going to have his team so prepared that anything Oregon tries to do, I think Indiana's going to be prepared for. And where is the weakness? If you said Indiana's got, because every team you think has an Achilles heel, they all have something that could be exposed by just the right opponent. Nobody's found it with Indiana. Their offensive line won most valuable offensive player in the Rose Bowl. Their center. Every position group is well coached, disciplined, and talented. And when I say talented, they didn't start as 4 and 5 stars. but they've been coached into it. And they're also the right type of player where they have made themselves better. They have studied, they have prepared, they've done what the coaches have asked them to do. And so every position group, defensive line, I mean, we can go through defensive line. They put pressure on the quarterback. They're hard to run against. They're quick, they're athletic, they're relentless. Then you go linebackers. Well, you got to talk about the linebackers. I mean, Hardy and then Aiden Fisher and what's the other kid? He's been there for a couple of years. He was huge in the is it Jones? Isaiah Jones, is that it?
I'll double check.
But they've got their linebackers are so darn good. And then the secondary, led by D'Angelo Pons. I mean, and then offensively, they got two really good running backs. They got the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback. The tight end, when you forget about him, what does he do? Make a 25, 30-yard play. The wide receivers, Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper, they become household names. Everybody in college football now knows Surratt and Cooper. And guess who else they know? They know Charlie Becker because Surratt got hurt and Becker came in and played better than Surratt.
Big play Becker, man.
There is no weakness. And then special teams. I mean, the kicker just kicks them through. I mean, there is no weakness. None.
No, and
they don't have an Achilles heel. They don't have an opponent that you match up against and you say, oh man, their strength is our weakness. Indiana doesn't have a weakness. That's why they're number one in the country. It's why they're undefeated.
Yeah, you mentioned it. And and we got a great comment here from Bob Gibson, who's watching. He said he noticed that the defense doesn't miss open field tackles. And that's huge. Yards after carry can absolutely damage a team. So, making those open field tackles is huge.
That's a good point. But again, it's part of what Curt Cignetti has brought, a very fundamentally sound football team. And
mentally tough.
Tackle is one of those fundamentals. Coverages, I mean, they rarely blow a coverage. I mean, early in the season, do you remember, who was it? Was it Old Dominion where the quarterback ran 2 touchdown runs?
Yep, I remember that. Yep.
They had a couple of busted assignments, right? Mm-hmm. Running that read option where they fake it to the running back, and there was somebody who bid on the running back that probably should have been keeping an eye on the quarterback. They had a blown coverage, I think, against Oregon. I think was who I'm trying to remember that game. Was it Iowa or Oregon where they had a blown coverage and gave up a wide open touchdown?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't do it very often, and they do it once and you never see it again. Adam, a lot of people bought into Indiana as the season went on. And I tried to go back and I was going to try to pull the clip and I ran out of time and didn't find it. But I know either before the season or after the first week, I said Indiana is better than they were a year ago. Do you remember?
Yeah, I can vouch for you. You definitely did. As someone who's had all these conversations, that's one I can remember you saying for sure.
Because there were a lot of people concerned over Indiana because they had a closer than expected game against ODU. And I said, do not worry. Aaron Rodgers, RELAX, relax. You don't have to worry about it. This team is more talented and better than they were a year ago. They dominated that game with the exception of those 2 busted plays. Offensively, there were some things in the red zone that didn't click, but you knew that Curt Cignetti would fix that. They would be better in the red zone. I had nothing to worry about after that first week. And I know either just before that game or after that game, I said, Indiana, their roster is better than it was a year ago. And I also added, and I will be honest, I added, Adam, they had a tougher schedule, and with the 3 road games, they might not have a better record, but they would be a better football team. Well, guess what? I might have been a little wrong there because they're a better football team and had a better record.
Yeah, and by the way, that Old Dominion team finished 10-3, was the Sun Belt Conference champion, and won their bowl game against Southern Florida. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's a good football team. That was a
no
good
question.
football.
Yeah.
But no, what Indiana did, and of course Fernando Mendoza. So many Heisman winners get to their bowl game, and they've had all the hype, and they've been through the interviews and the media circus and everything, and so they end up getting to their bowl game and kind of laying an egg. They don't play as well or perform as well. Fernando Mendoza only reinforced why he deserved to win the Heisman. He doesn't try to do too much. Indiana doesn't try to throw the ball 40 times a game. They throw because it's part of their balanced offense, but when they throw, dang, I mean, he doesn't make a bad throw. Occasionally he'll throw something on a quick screen where a guy jumps a route or reads a play, and he might get in trouble on a play like that. But those some of those quick bubble screens and stuff they run, you don't have time to look at the defender. All you got to do is be able to take the snap and fire it, and so he's been picked off on a couple of those. But I tell you, that was just dominating a win over a team that's supposed to be a contender for a national title. And like I said, I'm already on record. IU will beat Oregon. I'll have to come up with a score eventually, but and I think Miami's going to beat Ole Miss. That's going to be a game of offense versus defense, and I think Miami's defense is going to be too good for Ole Miss. And so I think Miami's going to advance, and I think it's going to be Indiana and Miami in the national championship game, which will be fun for my household.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Got to figure out who my kids will be loyal to after moving down to South Florida. Uh, it's been 10 years, so they might
Mm.
they might have forgotten their Indiana ties. I don't know.
Yeah,
Although my one son is still wearing a Colts jersey, going to football games in Florida.
speaking of the Colts, we got a comment from Rick Longsworth. He said, "Has Ballard been fired yet?" And he also wanted us to know that IU has beaten 7 teams with 9 or more wins this season.
Yeah, it's not as bad a schedule as what people want to make it out to be, and the fact that Indiana still played their toughest teams on the road. They had to go to Iowa. They had to go to
Yeah,
Oregon. They had to go to Penn State. And Penn State, they were desperate to get their season turned back around. And, we know how talented Penn State is. They get first place votes in the preseason poll?
yeah, I think they did.
And so that was a deeply talented Penn State team with a very experienced quarterback. And they had to go into Happy Valley and try to beat the Penn State Nittany Lions. And I know it was a team that was reeling, a team that had lost their coach. Still, not any kind of gimme by going into Penn State. And so they faced adversity. They faced the challenge. Now they actually get Oregon in the Eastern time zone. So Oregon is the team that has to travel.
Yeah, and
I,
I can already tell you there's going to be a lot of Indiana red down there, down at the Peach Bowl.
yeah, yeah, it'll look like Christmas all over again with the Oregon green and the Indiana red.
uh, yeah, I
But
think that's easier flight too from the Indianapolis area than it
yeah,
is to get all the way out there from Oregon. So I think should be a nice red stadium down there. Hopefully,
yeah, I'm sure it will be. Indiana fans are pumped up about this. Um, and for Indiana fans, it's a drive. You don't even have to fly it.
not necessary. Yeah, you could just drive it if you want to.
I mean, it's like 7.5 hours for Indiana fans to drive it. You could take, a day and drive down and be there, leave in the morning, be there by evening, enjoy a night or two in Atlanta,
Sure,
and go to the game on a Friday, have all day Saturday to make your return trip. So if you want to sleep in late, make sure you aren't too hungover after Indiana wins. That
oh,
might be a
I'm sure
problem.
there's a
Uh,
lot of partying in the Rose area. I'll just say that, and
but
in Vegas too.
yeah, I mean, Indiana, they do so many things really well. They run the football. Uh, they block without a bunch of penalties. They They have two running backs that, while being somewhat different, they produce the similar results. I think one had 99 yards, one had 89 yards, or something like that in the game on Pasadena against Alabama. They, they're totally interchangeable. One might be a little quicker, one might be a little more of a stronger back, but to me, they're very similar, and it's not like you have to take one out when it's 3rd and 2. You can, whoever's in can be in, because they can both run 3rd and 2 as easy as they can run 1st and 15, and and they break away from tackles. They're just, the whole team is so impressive. I mean, it is fun to be in Indiana. And you don't have to be a Hoosiers fan to have a little Indiana pride. And you might be a Notre Dame fan, you might be a Purdue fan, but admit it. There's a part of you, since your teams are done, there's a
And quit
part of
on
you
bowl games.
that are like, it'd be kind of nice for our state. Purdue fans will never probably admit that they're rooting for Indiana. They won't do it. But you got to admit, if you're a Purdue fan, a part of you thinks, just for the story, as Kurt Signetti said, it would make a great movie. Just for the story, you've
And it
got
kind
to,
of gives you
and the
hope
state
too.
pride, you got to feel kind of good about what's happening in Bloomington. And for Purdue fans, they can use that as the example of the hope they have for their future. But
We'll
pretty
see.
darn awesome.
Yeah, Bob Gibson commenting again. He said, "Isn't the championship game in Miami? That will be interesting, especially if it's your predicted matchup."
I didn't even think about that, but it is in Miami.
Yep, Miami Gardens.
It's Hard Rock Stadium, home of
Mhm.
the Dolphins, which, boy, thank God it's not going to be occupied.
Yeah, Dolphins have been long gone.
Yeah.
He also let us know that this is from Adam Schefter, and I did go and confirm. Colts general manager Chris Ballard and head coach Shane Steichen will return for the 2026 season. So Rick, who asked earlier if Ballard had been fired yet, that is a no.
God.
Hey, I don't know. How much can you throw under the bus for Ballard this season in regards to the injuries? I mean, things were going well before the injuries and it looked like he had put together something that was working. So can you really blame Ballard? I mean, I know he didn't get the best injury replacements necessarily, but what do you think?
Well, okay. You you can go back through the years, and this isn't just, let's look at this year. To me, Chris Ballard now has, what is it, 9 years, 10 years of sampling. And Andrew Luck walked off the field, and it's been like 6 years ago. And you've got to be able to find a franchise quarterback. They put a bunch of eggs into the basket known as Anthony Richardson and tried to convince us that he was their guy. That's never worked out. In the NFL, if you fail as a general manager in picking the right quarterback, you probably have failed at your job, because that's the most important part of the job, is having the right quarterback. Um, but he's overpaid the offensive line, which has shorted them and having the money to pay for key positions. He eventually found the money to be able to pay a couple corners. Yes, they got hurt, but um, I, it's a point where, how much mediocrity are you going to accept, regardless of how much you can justify and say, yeah, it might not be his fault, they were injured, but how far are you willing to go being a 500 football team? Whether you are 500 because you were 900 through the first 8 games and you were 100 the next 8 or 9, ultimately the general man, somebody has to pay the price, right? That's just the way it is in sports today. Somebody has to be held accountable. Chris Ballard has never been called out and held accountable. And I feel like last year he had a come to Jesus meeting with Mr. Ursay, and then Mr. Ursay passed away. And now it's Carly Ursay Gordon who has to make that call. And I don't know if it's a sign she's a coward, um, but it's her first big decision, and she's going to put it off.
Give it one more year at least. Yeah, it's a little lenient. It's a little lenient. I'll give you that. So,
And here's the thing: it's hard to fire Ballard and keep Steichen.
yeah,
Because
they're a
if you're going to
package.
replace the general manager, there's a good chance the general manager is going to want to bring in his own coach.
Yeah.
And so if you're 50-50 on both those guys, you might err in the side of caution and say, let's bring them both back, but we're going to let them know this is it. You got to produce. We're not going to accept mediocrity anymore. They're going to have some decisions to make with their roster too. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Because they've got a couple of key decisions to make on the roster. All right, we talk about Indiana football, and of course, no one does it better and more often than the guy that's joining us, because you know him. You know him from our high school football coverage, where he's a very distant number 2 in the booth. But today,
That's exactly
he's
distant.
number 3.
That's right.
Hey.
Distance.
Shannon Griffith joins us. How are you, Griff?
Good, man. Good. And what did it for me with the Colts is when they went and brought Philip Rivers out of retirement. That, to me, was the end of the experiment that should have been today. And they
you know what, Griff? I kind of agree that seems like a really far-fetched thing that no other general manager would have done.
No.
But every time somebody brings it up, I say, okay, who was your choice?
No, I would have got
out there. I mean, you got 4 games left in the season.
Well, they tried to go get whatchamacallit, who's out in Denver, was on the practice
John
squad.
Elway.
John
Manning. Yeah, they tried to go get Peyton Manning.
Tried to get him out of retirement.
No. Then they tried Andrew Luck. He said no. They got Phillip Rivers.
They got Phillip. To me, I would have the chance of them making the playoffs, even at the time they made this decision, was, to me, wasted 3 games that you could have at least decided on what Riley was going to give you in that quarterback spot, whether or not he was either going to be a bona fide backup or potentially a guy that could run the show. And I think they wasted 3 weeks of using Phillip Rivers in a position they were not going to win with him at quarterback. I don't care what they say or how close they were. They just weren't. I mean, God bless him. He's a good guy. I mean, he's a good quarterback. And he, for a guy that was 44 coming out trying to sling it around, you can't fault him for that. But I just thought that was a bad position to put a quarterback in, and the phone call should have never been made.
Well, it did kind of feel like a novelty. And by the way, it was Sam Ehlinger.
That's it.
If you want to talk about being in a tough position, what about Riley Leonard and Anthony Richardson? Because you can't keep both, can you? I mean, it's done for Anthony Richardson, right? And then the question is, what can you do with him? Does he have any value in the trade market?
Probably very little if they throw him in a deal, maybe for, a 2-for-1 deal or something like that. But I doubt if his value is going to be great. And I think that decision with him was made even before he, about took his eye out before week 1. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, they lost. I mean, the injury that they faced right in the midst of their downfall didn't help them any, but they were kind of trending down even when that happened. It was really weird how hot of a football team they were for 8 weeks, 9 weeks.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden,
Daniel Jones, he'd have gotten his chance if he'd have been healthy instead of that freak accident,
Right. It was just, yeah, exactly right. He could have come and, proven his value as a freak accident, and then you're kind of left in no man's land. But, yeah, I just thought they wasted 3 weeks to develop whether Riley Leonard was going to be a legitimate, true NFL backup, like most think he will be. But now you're going to base it on 2 games, and so I don't think Riley Leonard was all too happy about the situation when they went and brought Phillip Rivers in from retirement either. That didn't do a load of good for his, confidence. Yeah.
All right, let's talk IU. And this question or statement came in earlier, and I'm going to pin it on you and see what your response is. Indiana and what this football team has done under Kurt Cignetti in the last 2 years is it the greatest turnaround of any sports franchise at any level in the
Mm.
history of all sports.
Mm. Well, it's
What
definitely
about
the
the Mets?
shortest.
I'd have to go back and do some
Yeah,
checking.
I would
But
have to really do a lot because you got to
remember
look.
the Mets with Seaver and Kuzman, and weren't they like the
Yeah,
absolute worst? And they came back and won the next season. I
yeah,
don't
there was
know.
a quick turnaround.
They had a big turnaround.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
but
would. Yeah, I would think that it would rank with any team that has gone from obscurity all the way to being the darling of the country in a matter of 24 months. You talk about football, Bill Schneider's turnaround at Kansas State when he went there many years ago, he was kind of the coach that went the JUCO route to bolster his roster to get them in a position to be competitive, and then it took off for him because Kansas State was in obscurity as well when he took over there many years ago. Now he had to do it in the old rules of scholarships and JUCO players and things of that nature. So
development, yeah.
his turnaround was quite remarkable, but it was done over a period of years. When you talk football, you almost have to break it down because do you compare what Indiana's doing to more of a pro level turnaround because of the value and the money that's involved, or do you compare it to a collegiate turnaround and trying to compare it against an era where the rules are completely different? And I'm not saying, one way or the other, but it is a remarkable turnaround from what they've gone from 3-9 in a matter of 24 months. That 3-9 team lost, I think, 6 or 7 games by 6 points or less or something. It was a ridiculous number. They could never get over the hump. They were close, but never could get over the hump. To all of a sudden finding themselves winning those type of games because they did that in Sig's first year where they won like 6 or 7 games by a total of like 15 or 16 points. And then to this year where they have ultimately just separated themselves from a vast number of programs that you would not have expected them to separate themselves from, especially this long. I mean, it's amazing that they've gone this far with no losses. I mean, that's incredible. So it all depends on probably what happens over the next 2 weeks, whether they wrap it up, in a fashion like they could, or do they fall short? And then does that stumbling block hurt them in the eyes of being a turnaround? I don't think it does. In my mind, I think it's one of the greatest turnarounds in sports history, but I can't state that with an absolute certainty just because of, like you said, there's probably going to be 1 or 2 teams, if you're looking at all sports, that you're going to bring in. Well, what about this? Like you brought up the Mets. What about that team? And, other teams that are kind of in the same boat, you would probably find they're similar turnarounds just at different sports.
Love to get comments on it. If you're watching, want to leave a comment, we'll be trying to get those. Did get one comment, and I think this is directed toward the Colts. Came in from Reed Porter, who said, next year is just going to be another wasted year. And that's kind of the feeling, I think, is, the Colts. That's one of the reasons you make change is to bring new optimism. It's the definition of insanity that if you, do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, you're insane. And that's kind of what the Colts have done. They keep hoping that maybe they'll do it different next year and maybe things will work out. And every year it ends up being in the same place. But all right, here's the other question when it comes to Indiana, which Adam and I discussed earlier. I go through each position group and even through special teams. Indiana does not have an Achilles heel. Every team generally has one area whether it's secondary, linebackers,
Mhm.
soft on the run with the interior defensive front or front seven. Don't have a great pass rush and don't get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. Offensive line might have a weakness or two, even if it's just a player or one side of the line.
Mhm.
It just seems like every team has one place that you find that you feel like that okay, that's where they're most vulnerable. I I can go through every group with Indiana and I'm not sure you find that vulnerability.
Yeah, and
What
I
do you
think
think?
if you would listen to a lot of the opposing coaches or even some of the coaching pundits that are on, on the different networks, that is one thing that they've pointed out very consistently, that they do not have an overall weakness. And while they may not have all the different 4 and 5 stars another team may have, they beat you with consistency and technique. And, that's the thing that trumps somebody that's got great talent. You can beat them if you have consistency and technique in what you do. And that's what Indiana's always been able to do. And I would assume that's one big thing that Cignetti talks about when he talks about his blueprint and what he looks for in type of players. So I do think that's a fair statement. With that, I think the one thing that kind of hit me this year with college football, it would seem like all the good teams, with maybe exception of a few that fall in that Indiana category, they were either good on one side of the ball, but not both sides of the ball. It was like, look at Alabama, for instance. They, for a better part of the year, their defense carried them. I mean, that was their saving grace. Then their offense came on, but they were never, an elite offense. And they had a ton of 4 and 5 stars. But then when you play a team like Indiana that's good in all phases, they just tear you apart because they force you to play with your left hand and they exploit you for it, and you have no answer. And that's what Indiana's been able to do because their defense is so good, and they play the field position battle probably as good as any team in college football, and they don't make mistakes, and that's been evident from week one of the year. That pretty common phrase about Cignetti is they don't make mistakes. So, yeah, that's the one thing that I think that's shown is how good a football team Indiana is, not just on one side of the ball, the other, all 3 phases of the game, they are really good. Or Thursday, excuse me. I get my dates mixed up here, but I said this before, and we may have even talked about it. Thursday against Alabama, after they got the turnover, that was within the last 2 minutes of the half, Indiana scored again. That's 12 out of 14 games where Indiana has scored before halftime in the last 2 minutes. That is remarkable. And it's such a detriment to the detriment of the opposing team because it takes any momentum away. It also puts a cap of depression on them because they're like, we couldn't do that. And they let it happen. And then Indiana, I don't know how many times they've scored on their first possession of the second half. They did that again
Yeah.
on Thursday. So it was a 14-0 run in a matter of minutes. And that's another way that Indiana has separated themselves in a lot of these games, is just from that fact that they scored with the last 2 minutes of the half.
What I have learned, and it has never been in doubt, is that there's a ton of ignorance on social media, and it was really exposed quite a bit when you went through and watched people try to predict this game between Indiana and Alabama. Because every time I heard someone speak about Alabama, it was very clear they've never seen Indiana play. I
Well,
mean,
right.
you heard things like their defense isn't that good, or um, you know, the Fernando Mendoza stats. And you brought up a good point. Because Indiana is so balanced and they're able to run the football, and in many cases they get a comfortable lead, and it's to their advantage to go run heavy. Fernando Mendoza doesn't have stats because he's had to carry this football team
No.
offensively. What he's done exceptionally well. And I think that was truly on display. And I think the average college football fan really appreciated what they saw in Mendoza was he didn't have to throw it 40 times, but when he threw it, he looked like an NFL quarterback. He
Oh,
looked like the best player in college football.
it was ridiculous. He was 14 of 16, 87% completion percentage. Here's the other thing that you hear quite a bit, and it goes to show you the overall bias that there's been in college football for years when you talk about Ohio State, Alabama, LSU, Georgia. You know, nobody can see anybody else coming close to them that are in that quote unquote second tier of teams. And so that's kind of what you see there. The other thing that's so interesting about this, how do you play Indiana defensively? Alabama decided they were mostly a zone team for the better part of the year. They came in and blitzed Indiana on 52% of their snaps and played man. I was like, that was the stupidest thing they could have done, because that gave Indiana a chance of getting the big chunk plays consistently, and they did. And they couldn't stop them from running it. So, again, Indiana's one of those teams, they figure out what you're going to do, and then they adjust to it. And like you said, once they get a chance and build a lead, they've got two running backs that are as good a tandem in the country in the backfield with Hemby and Black, all because they run hard, not because they're, you know, Hemby's got some speed, but Black doesn't. They're always following forward. They're getting 4 to 5 yards a carry, and it just demoralizes the defense because what do? Okay, we're going to play zone. He's going to pick us apart. Okay, we're going to play man. He's going to pick us apart. You know, there's no answer, because at least in zone, you keep them in front of you. And man, they got exploited because their corners were like redshirt sophomore and a freshman, and they just couldn't cover Surratt and, you know, Charlie Becker and some of these other players. So Indiana's has served themselves quite well, because they've found answers to teams that try to do something to take it away, and they're able to do the exact opposite to exploit what you're giving them, whether it's in the run game or the pass game. And that's what they've done all year with everything. So that's the hard part about defending this offense, is that alone, is because you just like, oh, we're going to blitz them. Okay. Who did that this well? Very good. Alabama tried it, didn't do it. They got 4 and 5 stars, right? And even since Oregon did some of that, when Oregon and Indiana played way back in October, and that hurt Oregon more than it helped them. So it's going to be an interesting.
Hoping that what Alabama did or what Ohio State did to Indiana a year ago still applies.
Yeah, right.
And it doesn't.
No, because I think they've addressed those issues that Indiana had, mostly in the front. And I think it's one of those things when you're playing a team like Ohio State, you got to play them at least once, because you really don't know what you're into. You go there in the mystique of Ohio State, and you're not familiar with them. Well, that kind of got rubbed off last year with them in Notre Dame. So I don't think Indiana looks at them any different than any other opponent. I mean, Brian Haynes even said that against Ohio State. He spent way too much time trying to figure out what ifs than just going and playing and calling a game, you know. And I think that's what you're seeing now. And today they're cleaning up in the portal. I mean, they've gotten some big time commits already, and they're going to get more. I mean, they got Nick Marsh from Michigan State. He's a big time receiver. They got Turbo out of Boston College as a running back. So that you can already hear the memes that are going to be coming up on on everything. But that's the other thing.
One of those guys back, Hemby or Black, are they both?
No, they're both out. But the kid that's coming back is that Kobe Martin kid out of Hamilton Southeastern. He is really good. He's got the best of both worlds. He's got the size of Hemby. He runs as hard as Black, but he's got the speed to go with it. So he's going to be a kid to watch flourish in this offense, and I think he'll do really well. They picked up the Josh Hoover kid, the quarterback from TCU, he was probably one of the best in the portal. So
picked up a pass rusher, I think, out of Kansas.
Yeah, out of Kansas State. Yeah.
I'm not going to dare try to say his name, but
neither will I.
More vowels than consonants, but.
That's the thing. It's hard now. Just you think about it. It's just all these teams that are in the Final Four are having to worry about recruiting over the last 24 to 48 hours before they even start thinking about the game, and the games this week are Thursday, Friday. So it's a short week on top of it.
Players.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Indiana's had 3, I think, enter the portal, none of grand significance.
Right.
Yeah, it was interesting though to hear Signetti talk about the balance between not only preparing for Oregon but also handling these visits on and getting ready for those as well. So yeah, but like you said, he's been making a splash every time I check social media. It's a new commit has landed at Indiana, and they've been a big production for their previous school. So they're already looking forward to what it's going to look like after the rest of this season.
Yeah, and Miles Graham is in the portal now, the kid out of New Haven, out of Ohio State. He entered the portal, and then of course Brock Scott from Leo, who I'm hearing, again, I've heard a lot of rumblings that he may end up at Indiana. And it would be a good get because Indiana loses their top 2 tight ends this season when it's said and done. And we know the talent that kid brings to the table. So he may be heading to Indiana as some of the rumblings that I've heard. Now, I don't know because I'm not rivals.
Got better things to do than
I can't follow these 18-year-old kids around all the time.
An 18-year-old who's a freshman in campus at Miami.
Yeah.
Okay, Griff. Indiana, Oregon. A lot is being made out of the fact it's the second time and it's tough to beat it. I said this earlier, and I totally believe this. That has no factor on a Curt Cignetti team. He is going to be able to get his team to focus so much on Friday that the last game means it's like they never even played. That's the way I see Curt Cignetti going about this. That they're going to prepare like they always prepare. They're going to watch the tape like they always watch the tape. There may be a reference or two with the game before, but I really think that it's not going to matter. Now, Oregon, they might want to play better or do something different. But just like the long break between games, what was it, almost 4 weeks? Everybody said, oh, it's such a long layoff. And teams weren't winning with those long breaks. If you look at the college football playoffs, 7 of the 8 that had the bye have now lost. Indiana's the only one that won. But I said the extended break or the rematch of a team, I think those type of things when it comes to coaching is advantage Indiana, because the more time and more information that you give to Curt Cignetti, the better his team is going to be prepared.
Yeah, and I do think out there in the world of sports, we've kind of come to the understanding when you got 2 really good teams, trying to beat a really good team twice is difficult. But at the same time, that game was so far in the past, back in October, coaches will look at that game. They'll look at it for the sake of seeing what they did good, what they did bad, or, what were their adjustments. But I don't think they'll put too much stock in that game because it was being so long ago and these teams have evolved in that respect. But I don't think you're going to find Indiana changing, nor Oregon, a lot of what they do in this game. There's going to be wrinkles. There's going to be motions and formations and things of that nature, but they're still going to come down to what they do the best, and you're going to have to defend the best. Now, Dante Moore is a great quarterback in the sense that he can hurt you both running and throwing it. Didn't play that well against Indiana. A lot of that was because Indiana sacked him like 5 times that game. So that was a key component. They were also without, I think, 2 of their top wideouts in that game, if I'm not mistaken. So they're a healthier team than they were back in October in that respect. So it's going to be a great game. It's a 4-point favorite, Indiana. I do think it's going to be a tight, close ball game. And at the end of it, Indiana is going to have to play again their A game, and it's not that they haven't, because the razor thin margin of error right now, where anything and everything can change the complexity of a game, is so razor thin, and this game is going to be no different. So it should be a great game, and it's going to probably be a game that's a 4.6 point differential to see who wins.
Well, just wait till I make my prediction, then you'll know what kind of game.
Yeah, you made the right prediction. I mean, you said that Indiana would roll Alabama, and I wasn't in that camp at all. I was not in that camp at all. I thought it would be. I think I said a 7-point differential, but I didn't expect them to throttle them the way they throttled them. Absolutely not. But you did.
How'd you like my stat of the day? That Indiana, regardless of how this year plays out, Indiana will play 2 years under Coach Kurt Signetti, never losing to a team that didn't compete for a national championship game.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, that's another thing that kind of is a remarkable feat in such a short period of time. And that's the thing that you get with some of these people that don't know what the hell they're saying. I mean, if Indiana played the SEC schedule, I guarantee you that they probably wouldn't have gone undefeated. Well, how do you say that? Or how do you even think you can know that? Because they just throttled your second best team in the freaking Rose Bowl. And, they want to make these excuses. And the thing that the SEC right now is trying to do is there's this mythical who's the best conference in the land deal that the SEC has been claiming the last decade or so. It's over. There is no dominant team with the way the portal and NIL money are in today's game. There's another Indiana out there just waiting to happen, and it probably will at some time. But the SEC is not the most dominant conference in the land anymore, and they might as well accept it because everybody's caught up to them because of NIL, and that's the big reason. Biggest of them all is right there.
How'd you just pull the incredible shrinking act? Did anybody?
I don't know what happened there. Oh, it's my camera.
Did anybody else know? Griff just went from up here, just slid down to the bottom. It wasn't me. I didn't decide I wanted to make Shannon Griffith a short man.
Yeah. This desktop camera or something does something when you move. It's something with your eyes or something. It's like your eye tracker or something. But yeah, wasn't me. There it goes. Back
there we go.
There you go.
I looked up and down. But anyway.
Now you're big again. Yeah,
you're big again.
The tall guy among the three of us.
That's right. But yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. But again, the conferences, as we say, I just don't think you can ultimately say this conference is better than this conference and so forth and so on. And just in today's game, I think it's awful hard to make those statements in today's game.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you take the second tier, I think among the teams that Indiana played, it would be fair to put Illinois in that second tier of the Big Ten. They blew out Illinois. I mean, and then you take a Maryland that wasn't certainly in the second tier, but they went on the road and blew out Maryland. I mean, that's the thing is they dominated the teams. People want to say, oh, they played a weak schedule, but they weren't beating them 17-16.
Right.
Everybody's going to have stronger teams they play, and the fact that Indiana had to play the strongest teams on their schedule all on the road, Iowa, Oregon, Penn State, and they went and beat all three of them on the road.
Yeah, that's an Iowa team that took out SEC Vanderbilt in their bowl too. So that's just another win for the Big Ten over the SEC. Yep, done, Diego. Go.
Yeah. And that was the thing.
Iowa's offense actually outscored Vanderbilt's offense.
How about that?
And the biggest thing
he took shots at.
Yeah, the one that he said he only needed 7 points to beat him. That wasn't true. People didn't realize how good a defense Iowa had. That was the thing. Iowa was one of those teams that I would say fit in that category. Really, really good defense, struggled offensively to really amount to anything consistently. Now, we saw it in the bowl game where their offense was pretty darn good. But that was another team that was probably on the cusp of being a team to be discussed in the playoff. Had they not lost another game throughout the season, they would have been in that discussion, I guarantee you, because I think you could have made some arguments that they may have been better than X. But, their defense was a really good defense. And Indiana struggled at Iowa, let's face it. I mean, they had to get a big play in the final minutes of that game to pull away and win it. And Indiana had some things go their way in some of those games, and that's sometimes what happens.
Got to take a moment to ask you about the other semifinal. because that one's actually going to be played before the Indiana Oregon semifinal Thursday night. Is it crazy to me? College football is not Thursday, Friday.
Mhm. I don't.
Everybody. I'm hearing. I already got text on it today that there's going to be some Indiana high school basketball games that are going to be moved off Friday
Mhm.
because the schools feel like with Indiana playing in that football game, it's going to affect their attendance at a high school basketball game, and they're trying to find a different night to move their basketball games to.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the other game, Miami, Ole Miss. I I said earlier I thought Miami's defense is better than Ole Miss's offense, and I think Miami is going to ride their defense to that championship. What say you, Mr. Coach?
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think Miami's right now is playing the best of a lot of teams on in the college football playoffs. I think they've played well. Now we know Carson Beck's. It takes him to have to play a good game, because if this game goes south, that really hurts that team. Well, it showed it last year with Georgia. Their defense is really good. The Chambliss kid for Ole Miss, though, he is so scary as a quarterback of what he can do. And that's the big thing that will be interesting. Will the speed of Miami be able to negate some of his threat down the field? That'll be the interesting part of it. But there's no question. I think Miami right now, the way they're playing, it'll be a tough to beat. So I agree with you that Miami's probably wins that ball game.
All right. Well, we're anticipating that you are picking Indiana and Miami as the national championship game.
Yeah, if I had to say right now, yeah, I think it's Indiana and Miami, and that would equate to the two best teams that are playing in the playoffs right now. I don't think anybody's playing close to Indiana other than Miami, but we'll find out, because Oregon is going to be a good test for Indiana, and you can't take away what they did to Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl.
Scott Dolson's got to step up, though. If that happens, Scott Dolson has to step up and go to the College Football Playoff Committee and demand that Indiana hosts next year's college championship game. If they have to go into another team's stadium to play them for the national title, that's not the way it's supposed to work.
No, and that's the thing with these venues and such, is that if you're looking for a venue that truly is neutral, then you can't have it in Miami. You can't have it in Indianapolis in some respect.
A team, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, there's been a big talk about making the Rose Bowl the national final game from here on out, as that being the Mecca.
UCLA is never going to have a chance.
Yeah, right. Well, it's hard to say, but I think they want a venue like that in the sense that it's the
Lucas Oil Stadium would be the perfect example of a place to play it.
Yeah, but you could say that's too close proximity-wise to Indiana.
It's not their home stadium, which Indiana's going to have to go to.
I don't disagree with you. But yeah, that one is going to be an interesting one. That if it is that, it'll be an interesting dynamic in terms of ticket availability. Because I was told out in Pasadena that Indiana had like 70% to.
Oh yeah, all I saw was Indiana fans. I can count on one hand the number of Alabama fans I saw out there, and I was out there for 2 days before and for the parade and for a little bit after. So, yeah, not a lot of Alabama representation out there,
which is surprising. That was surprising to me that Indiana occupied that much. So what does that tell you? Does that tell you that Alabama was skipping it because they thought they were going to go to Florida and people were saving their money? For the next game, or Atlanta, where it was closer by. And I know that's another big factor too, is cost. This cost that people are incurring going to these games. It's unbelievable, the cost to get a ticket, let alone, but hotel accommodations and flights is just ridiculous.
All right, Griff, we
All right,
we
buddy.
gotta move on, but great stuff, man. Always appreciate you.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
See you,
We'll have
Griff.
you on again. That is Shannon Griffith, coach and podcast host. Hoosier Tailgate. You can check that out. He previews everything. It's awesome. He'll have another edition, I think, coming up tomorrow night.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and of course, it's kind of an odd schedule. By the
Yeah.
way, Bears have tied it up with Detroit.
Yeah.
So
They're
for our
at
Bears
16
fans,
each.
with just over 2 minutes left, the Bears have the ball, first and 10 from their own 26-yard line, and it's a tie game, 16-16 with the Lions. Bears playing for the number 2 seed.
Let's see. Bob Gibson said the teams that get a bye should be hosting home games.
You know, it's a tough situation because the money is in the bowl games.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the racket that ESPN was able to put together was they got the broadcasting rights of all the big bowl games by making the big bowl games part of the college football playoff. They had to tie the two together to get, I mean, because you had CBS and ABC, everybody was split up, right, on these bowl games. It's like Fiesta Bowl was on NBC, and the Rose Bowl, I think, was ABC, and another one was on CBS. And ESPN said basically, well, if we take over as the exclusive broadcast of the college football playoffs, and we're able to put the college football playoffs into those bowl games, then we inherit the broadcasting rights of all the best bowl games. And so that it's gotten sticky trying to make sure there's enough games to go around to satisfy all these bowls and keep everything on ESPN. So, you know, that again, the money of college sports is what's driving it. Yep, money talks. You're right, Bob.
Yeah. Didn't need it to be a home game this one for Indiana, man. So they dominated that Rose Bowl.
All right. Last night, Braden Smith became the Big Ten's all-time assist leader. He's got a ways to go to get the all-time NCAA record, but what a player. I mean, for a guy that just represents everything about Purdue that you would think a player that goes to Purdue would represent. Blue collar guy.
Yeah.
Little overlooked. Doesn't get many offers. I don't know. Purdue might have been his only big school offer.
Yeah, I have no idea, but
definitely
under-recruited.
As a junior. What was that?
I was just saying definitely under-recruited if it wasn't his only offer for sure.
And here he is now going down as perhaps the greatest point guard to ever play in the Big Ten. So congratulations. Purdue wins that game comfortably, more comfortably than I expected. I said it would be like an 8 to 10 point game. And they won by what, 16, 18, something like that?
Yeah. Okay, so I Googled it. His other Power 5 offers were Oregon and Villanova.
Okay. So it wasn't like there was a long list.
No, the rest were all mid-major.
Not even enough schools to make a graphic.
Yeah, I mean, oh man, I've seen some crazy graphics with like 20 teams on it.
You know me and the graphics, Adam.
Oh, we got to have our reveal party, Brett. What school are we going to go
There's
to?
There's a graphic to narrow it down to my top 5. Da, da, da.
No, you can't just have a graphic for the top 5.
This Friday at 6, I'll be breaking it down to my final 3. Da, da, da.
You have to have a whole video production and graphics team when you get to the top 3 at that point. You can't just be a graphic.
Got this beautifully narrated story.
From the time I was 6 years old.
Supported me along the way.
Yeah, it's getting ridiculous, but hey, it also contributes to transfer portal and big signings in college football, and that's something that we've seen it can transform a team rather dramatically.
I would love to be able to have the power to say that I will retweet any athlete that puts out a post that says, just talk to Matt Painter, and I told him I'm committing to Purdue. No graphic, no nothing, just Leave it at that. I'll retweet it every dang day for the entire college career. I mean, seriously, I'm not that
It
influential that makes a difference. But um,
it would be a breath of fresh air.
we are building the egos and expectations of these kids by allowing them to do this. And they are empowered to do it because most of the kids are not putting these graphics and these videos and everything together themselves. Um, and just to me, it's kind of egotistical
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to think that you're important enough that you think people care that you've got 5 schools instead of 10 schools, or that you've got 3 instead of 5. I'm sorry, call me old. You wouldn't be the first. I just
Won't be
don't
the
like
last.
it. I don't like it. I'm sorry. I
No,
don't.
I get it. I do think it's a bit over the top, and could probably it would be refreshing to just see a, hey, I've decided I'm going here. Thank you.
Yeah,
You know,
that's it.
just don't need a whole thing. But
And
yeah,
I've talked to the coaches and
yep.
I've informed them that I've made my decision and I'll be attending Purdue in the fall, or I'll be
Excited to
attending
be a
IU,
Boilermaker.
or I'll be
Yeah,
attending whatever.
yeah.
Some
So
Indiana fan will go crazy that I keep saying Purdue. So
why are
yeah,
you
I'll
always saying
attend
Purdue?
Indiana in the fall. All right. Hey, Mastodons game today. You were behind the board in the
I'm
studio. I was
I'm
at the
claiming it.
game. Oh
I'm
my
claiming the good
God.
luck.
You can't do this to me. Okay. I got a 60-some-year-old ticker that just added an extra year a couple of days ago. I can't take these types of games where you are down double digits through most of the game and then all of a sudden decide to just catch fire like a bomb and go off at the end of the game and then end up winning it. And you don't put it away when you got a chance to put it away. You know, you have a turnover and then you miss a free throw. Um, but the Mastodons did win a very important game to win. And sometimes that's what you have to have in conference. You just have to have a game that you had to gut out where you didn't have your best basketball, but you got through it somehow. As Coach Kaufman said after the game, he said, I've had very few games where I've been here as the coach where we've shot less than 40% from the field and less than 30% from three and won the game. And that's what the Mastodons did today. Wasn't their best game. They're maybe in a 2 or 3 game funk. Teams go through that, but they got to win, and they needed it. And they found a way to come back from 16 down in the first half. They were down 10 or 12 in the second half. They were down 11 at halftime.
Yep.
And then down by 6. It was 67-61 when they went on a 10-point run, and the 10-point run was like in a minute 20. And the Dons were favored because the team they played, and that's PFW. Drop the I, Mr. Vegas. There is no I in team.
Not in that one.
Yeah, Indiana left us like 6-7 years ago. But no, we're just kidding with you, Mr. Vegas. But you're right.
Awesome.
They were like a 10.5 point. Now, Ken Palm only had it as a 7-point game, so I don't know how it ended up being 10.5 unless there was a lot of money coming in on Purdue Fort Wayne. And and Longshore is saying I have to call out Mr. Vegas, and I already did, Rick. You're too late. That's some of our pet peeve is the IPFW because we're still seeing it like Google has IPFW.
Social media.
Like, it has not been IPFW for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And old habits die hard. I know that. But anyway, so the Mastodons came back, and Mikhail Stevenson was a huge part of it. Now, I've been critical of Mikhail. Sometimes he tries to do too much. Sometimes he plays out of control. He had 7 turnovers the other day, way too high. But he's also a gamer. One of those guys that, give me the ball when the game's on the line. I want to be the hero. And he had a steal where he took it right out of the hands of the guy he was guarding. I mean, literally just stepped up into him, got right in his grill, reached out, grabbed the ball, took it right out of the guy's hands, went the other way, scored, and then the next possession went down and hit a three in the corner that gave the Dons a 4-point lead. That was the game. That was the game right there. With about 2 minutes left, he made those couple of plays. Huge plays for the Mastodons. But they'll be on the road this week. They are going to Youngstown State on Wednesday, Robert Morris on Sunday. And if you look at the league, by the way, Oakland, obviously the class of the league, Wright State is currently tied with Oakland, I believe.
Yep, they're both 4-1.
Yeah, see, it's tough when you went to IPFW. If you went to IPFW, it's always IPFW because it's not the team, it's the campus. That campus is IPFW, and there is still a portion of the campus that belongs to Indiana, but yeah, the team itself is PFW. So anyway, bottom line is we're on the road this week, off to Youngstown and Robert Morris. And Dons are right in the thick of things because you're only a game or two out of a couple of games out of first place. You're going to get another shot at Oakland. You still have your shots in front of you twice against Wright State. Youngstown State and Robert Morris, two teams that were expected to compete, and they both got a couple of losses. Youngstown State now, I think, has 3 losses. So 4 losses. Yeah, that's right. They fell to 2-4. So it's still a wide open league. And especially when it comes to seeding, you just want to make sure you're in that top 4. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else? Have we missed anything today?
No, I was just going to say, I think the second half today was a great way to get that offense rolling again for the Mastodons as a team that hadn't scored more than 55 points in their last 2 games. It was good to see them get back over the 70 mark, and hopefully that's a sign for things to come on Wednesday against the Penguins.
And they picked up the intensity on the defensive end, and that spurred their offense.
Exactly.
They were going through the motions defensively, but they weren't really the aggressor defensively. They were having the other team's offense be more aggressive against their defense than their defense was against the other team's offense. And in the last 2 or 3 minutes, the Dons became a very aggressive defense. They stepped in and stole a couple of passes. They had 2 plays where they just reached out and ripped the ball right out of the guard's hands and said, "This is mine, I'll take it," and took it away. And the Dons forced 15 turnovers, only committed 8 turnovers, differential of 7. It's one of the categories where the Dons are among the nation's leaders. So they did the things that they do best at the end of the game when the game was on the line, and they win it 74. What was it? 74-71? Was that the final?
That sounds correct. I'll double check. Yep, 74-71.
All right. We're out of here. Once again, make sure you subscribe if you have not subscribed. We'd love for you to subscribe on our YouTube channel. And you can find that at Brett Rump. It's the channel name is Sports Rush with Brett Rump.
Yep.
But the channel, to find it, you put youtube.com/@Brett Rump.
Yep.
And then make sure you hit the subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell. Give us a like. Bears lose. Last second field goal by the Lions. And the finals 19-16. Detroit beats the Chicago Bears. So Philly, now it says Philly is losing. So I don't know.
I don't know the playoff picture yet.
Through the playoff seeding. So we'll leave it at that. Have a terrific week, everybody. We appreciate you tuning in. Look forward to having you as a subscriber, and look forward to coming back and having our next show. By the way, keep locked in on 1380thefan.com on our high school sports page in case there's any changes. I know the issue has been discussed. I don't know if it's going to change, but I know there are going to be changes to Friday night's basketball schedule. Just don't know if it's going to be our game or not.
Gotcha.
A lot goes into it, depending on gym availability and other events that are scheduled, stuff like that. You know, sometimes there's a theater performance or a band concert. You know, you never know. This time of year, usually there's not a lot of that, but we'll see. All right, we're out of here. Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you again next time.